Dear listeners, before one learns how to master the outer world, one must begin by mastering the inner world. The path of self-mastery is not a path of force. It is a path of awareness, discipline, and removal. Today, I would like to speak to you about the 5 hindrances that silently but powerfully obstruct your progress towards self-mastery. Like boulders in a river, these hindrances disrupt the natural flow of your potential. They must not be fought. They must be understood and transcended. Let us reflect upon them through 4 key principles that support the path to inner clarity and strength. In the pursuit of self-mastery, the first and often most subtle obstacle is the hindrance of sensual desire. This is not only about indulgence in pleasure, but about the constant pull of the senses that keeps the mind outwardly fixated. It is the craving for stimulation, the attraction to the pleasant, and the resistance to the neutral or the dull. It is the itch for something more, something brighter, something louder. The challenge lies not in the presence of pleasure itself, but in our dependency on it, our attachment to the pleasant, and our aversion to silence and stillness. Sensual desire is the reason why a person cannot sit in silence for 5 minutes without feeling bored. It is why our hands unconsciously reach for the phone, the screen, the noise. It is why we eat not because we are hungry, but because we are uncomfortable with emptiness. Why do we fill every gap in our day with sound or sight? Because the mind driven by desire fears stillness. Stillness becomes a confrontation with the self, and for many, this is more uncomfortable than any physical hardship. What we must understand is that this endless reaching outward disconnects us from ourselves. It is like trying to fill a cup with water while there is a hole at the bottom. No matter how much we pour in, the thirst returns. This is the trap of sensual desire. It gives us a moment of pleasure, followed by a longer period of dissatisfaction. It does not nourish, it only stimulates. And as long as we live on stimulation, we will never develop the strength of stillness. Self-mastery demands that we train ourselves to sit with simplicity, to be comfortable with less, not less in a way that deprives, but less in a way that frees. The ancient masters did not renounce the world out of hatred for it. They renounced it because they saw its transience. They recognized that no matter how refined the pleasure, it too shall pass, and to anchor one's peace in something passing is to build a home on sand. So how does one begin to loosen the grip of this hindrance? The first step is observation. Without judging, without reacting, simply observe the pull of desire. Notice when your mind is restless and seeks to be entertained. Notice when you are not hungry but still crave food. Notice when you are not lonely but still crave attention. This awareness is the beginning of freedom, because what we see clearly, we are no longer blindly controlled by. Next, we practice restraint, not repression but conscious redirection. Instead of reaching for the phone, pause. Instead of indulging in every craving, allow one to pass by like a cloud. You do not need to fight it, you simply do not feed it. Slowly you will find that the craving weakens, and in its place something deeper arises. A sense of contentment, a sense of enoughness. This is the gift of stillness. To cultivate stillness, you must give it space. Every day, even for a few minutes, sit in silence without any form of stimulation. No music, no phone, no conversation. Just your breath, your body and your mind. At first it will be uncomfortable because the mind, conditioned by years of stimulation, will rebel. It will tell you this is a waste of time. It will tell you you are missing out. But stay. Stay until the storm settles, until the mind, like muddy water, begins to clear. And in that clarity, you will notice a new kind of joy, not the sharp spike of pleasure, but the steady warmth of presence, the joy of being here without needing anything more, the joy of not escaping the moment, but fully inhabiting it. This is the strength that comes from stillness. It is not passive, it is not weak, it is powerful because it is rooted. There will always be temptations, there will always be distractions, but the difference is that now you are not a servant to them. You have tasted something higher, something more real, and once you do, the glitter of stimulation begins to lose its hold. The sugar becomes too sweet, the noise too loud, the drama too empty. Self-mastery is not a rejection of life's pleasures. It is a reordering of priorities. It is a commitment to choose clarity over confusion, depth over distraction, peace over pleasure when they come at the cost of your presence. You learn to enjoy without an attachment, to act without addiction, to participate without being possessed. And so the first hindrance begins to dissolve, not through force, but through understanding, not through denial, but through refinement. This is the way of the inner warrior, the one who fights no one, but wins the greatest battle of all, the battle within. The second hindrance to self-mastery is ill will, and this one often hides behind the mask of righteousness. It is the fire of anger, the tension of resentment, the coldness of silent judgment. It appears when things do not go our way, when people act against our expectations, when life presents us with discomfort and we choose to meet it with blame rather than understanding. Ill will is the emotional energy that seeks to separate, to push away, to dominate. It is a reaction that arises when we feel powerless, and instead of softening, we tighten. Instead of understanding, we control. But the deeper truth is this: control is an illusion. We cannot control people, we cannot control the world around us completely. The only thing truly within our reach is how we meet what arises within and around us. The illusion of control leads to frustration because the world does not move according to our preferences. Other people have their own paths, their own pain, their own conditioning. To expect them to align perfectly with our mind is not wisdom. It is arrogance masked as justice. Self-mastery requires that we replace control with compassion. Compassion is not a weakness, it is the greatest expression of strength, because it requires us to keep our heart open, even when it is easier to close it. Anger is easy, anyone can be angry. What is rare is to meet provocation with patience, to meet insult with silence, to meet hostility with understanding. This does not mean we become passive or allow harm. It means that even when we stand our ground, we do so from clarity, not from hatred. Ill will is not only harmful to others, it is poison to the one who carries it. The mind filled with resentment is like a room filled with smoke. No matter how pure the intentions, the vision becomes clouded. A single thought of hatred can disturb an entire day. A single word spoken in anger can damage a relationship for years. And what do we gain in return? Temporary satisfaction, perhaps, but at what cost? The heart becomes heavy, the foot, the mind becomes restless, and the path to self-mastery becomes hidden beneath emotional debris. To release ill will, we must first become aware of it. Most people carry subtle forms of anger they are not even conscious of. A slight toward a colleague, a bitterness toward a family member, a grudge buried deep from the past. We hold on to these feelings thinking they give us power. In truth, they make us prisoners. To see this clearly is the beginning of liberation. When the mind becomes quiet, when we sit in stillness, the old anger often surfaces. This is not a mistake, this is healing. The practice is not to push anger away, but to observe it without feeding it. Notice how it rises where it lives in the body, what thoughts it attaches to. Just watch it like a flame in a lantern. If you do not add more oil, it will flicker and fade. In this space of awareness, compassion naturally arises. Because when you see your own anger clearly, you begin to see the anger of others not as evil but as pain unprocessed. When someone hurts you, they are often acting from their own suffering. Their aggression is their weakness, not their power. This insight does not excuse harm, but it transforms your response. Instead of reacting, you pause. Instead of attacking, you inquire. What is really needed here? Is it to speak? Is it to let go? Is it to step away? These choices become available only when the heart is not consumed by ill will. And the only way the heart becomes free is through repeated practice, through the cultivation of compassion as a living force, not a distant idea. To develop compassion, we can begin with ourselves. Notice how harshly we speak to our own mind when we make mistakes. Notice the impatience, the inner critic, the self-directed anger. This too is ill will, and it is often the root of how we treat others. If you cannot forgive yourself, your capacity to forgive others will always be limited. So speak gently to your own heart. Sit with your pain as you would sit with a friend. Offer your own mind the same kindness you long for from others, then extend this kindness outward, in small moments, in quiet ways. Listen without judgment, speak without blame, walk through life with the intention to understand more than to be understood. This is the way of compassion, not control. And from this space, real strength arises. Because nothing can disturb the one who no longer takes offense. Nothing can shake the one who no longer needs to win every battle. Compassion makes us invincible, not through domination, but through equanimity. The more you practice this, the more you will see ill will fading from your mind. Not because the world changed, but because your way of seeing it did. The people who once angered you will still speak. The situations that once triggered you will still occur, but your inner world will no longer be moved so easily. And this stillness is the beginning of true power. So as we continue the path of self-mastery, let us remember that the goal is not to control life but to live it wisely. And the wisest way to live is not with clenched fists, but with an open heart. The third hindrance on the path of self-mastery is sloth and torpor, and it is one of the most underestimated enemies of growth. It is the dullness that creeps into the body, the heaviness that clings to the mind, and the silent voice that says, not now, maybe later, perhaps tomorrow. It disguises itself as rest, but it is not the rest that restores. It is the stillness that stagnates. It feels like peace on the surface, but underneath it is resistance. It is not physical exhaustion, but a spiritual weight that holds us back from becoming fully alive. This hindrance does not always shout, it often whispers. It tells you there is no point in trying. It convinces you to wait for the right moment, the perfect condition, the spark of motivation. But that spark rarely comes on its own, because energy is not a gift, it is a result. It is something that is generated through action, not before it. The mistake most people make is believing that they must feel ready before they begin. But readiness comes from movement, not from idleness. Sloth and torpor are not merely about laziness. They are the absence of clarity and direction. When a person wakes up without purpose, the mind has no reason to be sharp, the body has no reason to rise with strength, and so both fall into a dull rhythm, a kind of drifting existence. We begin to fill our days with minor distractions, small comforts, and meaningless routines, not because they nourish us, but because they require no effort and ask no questions. To overcome this hindrance, one must first awaken to it, become fully honest about the difference between true rest and subtle avoidance. True rest leaves you refreshed, avoidance leaves you more tired. Energy over excuses is not about forcing the body beyond its limits, but about refusing to be ruled by inertia. It means choosing movement over delay, intention over vagueness, action over passivity. The body and mind are connected, and one influences the other deeply. When the body is inactive, the mind becomes cloudy. When the body is heavy, the spirit begins to sink. So one of the most powerful ways to clear sloth and torpor is to start with the body. Stand up, move, breathe deeply, stretch with awareness, walk with purpose. Each time you move your body with intention, you signal to your mind that you are present and engaged. In our training, we emphasize discipline, not to punish, but to awaken. Because discipline builds momentum, and momentum creates clarity. The simple act of doing something regularly with full attention is enough to break through the fog of a torpor. Whether it is meditation, movement, or mindful work, consistency is the key. And when you feel that heaviness again, do not wait for it to pass like a cloud. You must walk through it, step by step, breath by breath, until you emerge on the other side. Another important aspect is environment. Just as a plant cannot grow in a dark room, your energy cannot flourish in an uninspiring space. Surround yourself with simplicity and order. Keep your space clean and your schedule intentional. What you see and experience daily influences your internal state. If your world is cluttered, your mind becomes cluttered. If your life lacks rhythm, your energy has nowhere to flow. Also, be mindful of the company you keep. If you spend time with those who normalize excuse and stagnation, you will slowly begin to absorb the same attitude. Instead, choose to be around those who challenge you to grow, who hold you accountable, who speak from clarity, not from comfort. Their energy will lift yours even without words. And finally, observe your inner language. What do you tell yourself when you feel uninspired? Do you say, "I cannot do this," or "I will begin now"? Do you wait for conditions to change? Or do you change your position in this moment? The thoughts we repeat become the beliefs we live by. If you believe you are weak, you will act weakly. If you believe that energy is something you create, you will rise again and again, even when tired, even when uncertain. It is also helpful to reflect on your deeper reason, your why. Without purpose, energy has no direction, and without direction, it dissolves into distraction. Ask yourself, why do I train? Why do I grow? What do I serve with this life? These questions are like sparks, and when you hold them close, they ignite the fire within you. There will be days when you do not feel like moving, days when the mind feels clouded and the body feels unwilling. But those days are the most important days to show up, because it is not difficult to act when we feel good. The real transformation happens when we act despite not feeling ready. That is how energy is cultivated, through commitment, through movement, through presence. And as you begin to live this way, you will notice something changing. The heaviness lifts more quickly, the mind clears more easily, the excuses lose their strength, because you have stopped waiting for motivation, and instead, you have become the source of it. So let us remember that energy is not given, it is earned through daily action, through conscious choices, and through the courage to face our own resistance. And in doing so, we do not only rise above sloth and torpor, we begin to live with a lightness and strength that no external condition can take away. On the path of self-mastery, one of the most deceiving obstacles is the heaviness that quietly takes root within us. The dulling of the mind, the slackening of the spirit, the slow drag of the body. Not due to real tiredness, but due to a loss of inner fire. This is the hindrance of sloth and torpor, and it does not always arrive with noise. It often enters silently. It settles slowly, making us believe we are simply resting, when in fact we are avoiding the work of becoming. Sloth and torpor are not laziness in the common sense. They are deeper, more subtle. They are the lack of energy, not from exhaustion, but from disconnection. A person can sleep long hours and still wake up heavy, not because the body needed more sleep, but because the spirit has not been stirred to life. The energy that awakens clarity, purpose, discipline does not come from sleep alone. It comes from alignment and action. The more we wait to feel ready, the more we sink into passivity. Waiting becomes the excuse and energy slips further away. Energy is a result, not a condition. It is born from movement and direction, not from sitting still and hoping for change. Self-mastery does not ask for perfection, it asks for consistency. To feel heavy and act anyway, to feel uninspired and still take one step. This is the discipline that dissolves this hindrance. It begins the moment we stop justifying our delay and start moving with whatever we have, however small the effort. Sloth, torpor often come with stories. The inner voice that says, not today, maybe later, I am not in the right mood, or this is not the right time. These thoughts seem harmless, but they feed the very state we are trying to escape. It is not the thought itself that binds us, it is believing in it, following it, giving it power. The mind will always prefer comfort to discomfort, but growth does not come from comfort. It comes from pressure, not overwhelming force, but the steady discipline of showing up again and again. When the mind is dull and the body resists, the most powerful action is the smallest one done with full attention. Stand up, breathe deeply, move your body with purpose, not for the sake of exercise alone, but to awaken the energy that lies dormant within. Even the simple act of stretching the arms, walking in silence, or sitting upright can shift the entire internal state. The body and the mind are deeply connected, and the posture of the body becomes the posture of the spirit. To live with energy is not to avoid rest, it is to rest with awareness. To act with clarity, to move with intention. Sloth steals time not because it takes hours away, but because it steals the life inside those hours. It turns days into repetitions, moments into dull shadows. But with awareness and discipline, we turn that around. One breath at a time, one action at a time. Another aspect to recognize is that this hindrance thrives in confusion. When you do not know what you are doing or why you are doing it, your energy scatters. Clarity is power. When you rise in the morning with clear purpose, when your steps are guided by intention, your mind becomes sharp and your body follows. So take time each day to reflect on why you walk this path. Why you seek self-mastery. What do you serve? What is your deeper reason? Because when your why is clear, your energy has a direction. And where there is direction, there is less room for stagnation. This energy is not something magical. It is something we train like a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it gets. And the less we use it, the more it fades. Training the mind to stay awake requires routine but not mechanical repetition. It requires presence. Do your practices with full attention. Eat with mindfulness. Speak with clarity. Move with awareness. Slowly the fog of torpor begins to lift, and in its place the light of presence returns. Be mindful also what you feed your senses. A distracted mind is more likely to fall into this dull state because it is constantly pulled in many directions. Create a space around you that supports discipline, not temptation. Simplicity is not only an external choice, it is an internal one. Let your space reflect your intention, and your energy will begin to mirror it. There will always be moments when you feel low, when nothing inside you wants to rise. In those moments, do not wait for motivation. Do something small. Stand tall. Drink water. Take a few conscious breaths. The moment you act, the energy begins to return. This is the law of movement. The hardest step is the first, and once that is taken, the rest will follow more easily. Sloth and torpor are not defeated in one grand gesture. They are worn down by quiet perseverance. They lose their grip when you stop negotiating with them, when you stop making excuses and simply begin. With every step you take, despite the heaviness, you send a message to your mind that you are in control, that your purpose is greater than your mood. And through this quiet battle fought daily, with breath, with movement, with discipline, you begin to awaken a force that no longer depends on conditions. You become a source of energy rather than a seeker of it. And this is what makes you unshakable.